Prof. Vivienne Lawack and Rob Craig. They are together the authors of Impossible Bosses. Prof. Lawack is currently the Vice Chancellor Academic for UWC. She is also a Professor of Law in the Mercantile and help me, Mercantile? Labor Law, there we go. Mercantile and Labor Law Department. She comes with an amazing amount of experience both in law and in economics, and is super involved in the upliftment of the communities by taking part in committees that are involved in the legal, in the financial, and in the educational sector. And her latest offering for uplifting community is obviously how we can either handle or possibly be better bosses. She is joined by Hanlie Wessels, who after graduating with a honours in financial management, went on to do a crazy amount of work in all sorts of businesses. She has experience from ABSA to the Reserve Bank to Barclays to Deloitte and many, many more institutions under her belt. And as a result, is a really rounded expert in business. She has expertise in IT, in ops, in business strategy, in how to develop customer experience and customer service, in business optimization. And she's currently the CEO of Impact Business Development. And then the rose amongst tonight's thorns is Rob Craig right here. He, after completing his master's in business leadership from UJ, he went on to work for Connemara for 11 years, Connemara Consulting. I think of them with great fondness because we had a wonderful experience with them a few years ago where they helped us with our own people skills. And he's also involved in the Gibbs Business School and is currently the director of Bridge Consulting. And this is a consulting firm which firmly believes in developing people and teams and a company culture in order to give your company the edge in today's business world in South Africa. So that's these guys. Then there's you guys, and I'm guessing you are either because you want to know how to handle your impossible boss, or because you want to know what kind of boss you are. So let's kick back and have a great evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Linda. Tonight I'm just Vivienne Lawack. And it's really an absolute pleasure, first and foremost, to say welcome to all of you, just to confirm what Linda said. And my role in the beginning is to tell you the story of how this book came along. So the strangest thing is when one starts talking in decades, then you realize that time is really catching up on some of us. I met Hanlie in 2002. Now, to give context, I was working at the Reserve Bank, and we were working on a big project. Hanlie was also working at the Reserve Bank, or the SARB, as we say. And we clicked immediately. It's strange how sometimes you meet people that can finish your sentences. And that's actually what happened to us during that big project that we've done. Me from the legal side, and Hanlie was in Business Systems and Technology Department, PSTD. And we hit it off. And the rest is history. So what had happened was that our children are here tonight, and I have to single out the girls. I've got twin girls, they can just wave over there. Flavia and Victoire. They were about 1 or say 18 months. And Zabet over here, Hanlie's daughter, also 1. And this is sometimes how you meet the best people in your life, through your children. So let me tell you, for those that are slightly like us, a bit more mature, some of the youngsters here won't remember these characters. But they're quite important because it's also about storytelling. So Zabi and Victoire and Flavia, we were at Barney stage. You remember the purple dinosaur? Couldn't go anywhere without that. The songs relating to Barney, etc. But then also important, and that became part of our conversations also between Hanlie and I, taking it back to the role of us as career women with small children in Pretoria. And oftentimes during our conversations at the Wimpy in central Pretoria, close to St. Mark's Square, we would talk about these characters and then link some of these movies to the kind of challenges that we experience. And I'll mention two. The one we always spoke about, Lion King. And our children, we know all the words of Lion King. We can sing it right now. Any of those, we know Lion King. But thinking about the role of Scar with their hyenas, I don't know if some of you can remember that, how they tried to get rid of Mufasa and actually succeeded in getting rid of Mufasa. And then the other one that we remember very clearly was the girls, all three of them loved Shrek. And there's one character in Shrek, Lord Farquaad, and I'll quote, Farquaad used to say, "Some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make." So initially our conversations, because we were starting with sort of middle management and we're really over a period of 20 years. The girls are now, by the way, 21. So that's why I'm saying we are talking, look at Yopi shaking his head, he can't believe it. That is how long this. So where did this book come from? So whilst we were navigating our lives as career women and with these growing children, Hanlie left the Reserve Bank before I did. But in 2006, I actually had a Sami. It was a male Sami. So tonight we are going to do Miss Sami. And but Sami was quite important to me in the sense that it led me to start writing tongue-in-cheek what I observed about this Sami, this impossible boss that I had. And it actually led to me leaving the Reserve Bank, the SARB, but not hating Sami. You'll see tonight why we're not hating our impossible bosses. So I then invited Hanlie. I said, Hanlie, you also have a lot of these characters. So I've now, when I saw I had something like 35 pages, and there was some story here. That was 16 years ago, 2006. And there's a reason why this book had to take this long, because we had to grow through middle management, senior management, executive business owners and partners, business partners now, and that story had to grow with us. So you're going to see, and I'm going to hand over to Hanlie, that not only did we connect via some things like Barney and Lion King and so on, but we started reflecting at the early age in our career, because we wanted to be not to emulate those kind of impossible bosses. In the end, we had to discard some of it, and we ended up with 8, and we'll come back a little bit later about why we selected these 8. But I think Hanlie has something to add to this story.
Thank you, Vivienne. Good evening, everyone. Yes, so Vivienne and I really started out as a friendship, but we also started mentoring each other. And what was quite useful is we would have conversations between different cities. We'd quickly give a phone call while we're driving to work. And Vivienne would say to me, but you have met this character before. Remember Bernie? And we started realizing that there's a Bernie at every workplace. And that is why we started seeing a pattern, of it's the same people over and over again that we find it difficult to work with. And we actually, and that's a word that we coined in the book, we're friends and mentors, so we are friendtors. And that's something that I recommend. You look for being for someone else and looking for someone to support you, because that is incredibly valuable throughout your career, to have that one person that you can check in and speak to. So with this, that we started seeing, there's a pattern, it helped us to shape the characters. And when, during lockdown, Vivienne said, now we need to finish this book. We now need to complete it. And we completed it, and we gave the book in its draft format to a couple of friends and family to read. And there was 2 feedback points that came through. The one was, okay, what do I now need to do if I recognize this boss? Because at that stage it was only anecdotal, all these stories that we were telling. And we said, okay, no, fine, we can write that up as to what to do. The other point that came out was, but what if I am the impossible boss? And that also pushed us towards shaping the book differently. So at that point, when I started writing up what to do, I found that I was putting a footnote almost in every chapter, Rob Craig. And a lot of the techniques I learned from Rob. We certainly got a lot of support from our families, from other colleagues as well, but there is so much value in a professional coach giving you structure. So Rob, after Vivienne and I thought that we will invite you, I'm going to hand over to you to tell us why you were interested in writing with us.
Okay, hi everyone. Why was I interested? Well, there are 3 reasons. The first is I thought it would be a gets-rich scheme. I hope it pays out. Quickly, yeah. I'm not sure, but anyway. The second reason is because 3 days before I got the call, there was a colleague of mine, and she used to work at a consulting firm that I was once a part of. And she invited me to quite a Lani sort of place. And I was like, ooh, you know, what's this about? And if anyone knows Joburg, it's a huge hotel, and the top of it, they give you Moet champagne. So I thought it was, all right, this woman's hit the big time, I might have a new contract. The short story of this was, when I got up there, I met a woman who had aged beyond how long I'd last seen her. She looked anxious, extremely stressed, and not well. And she basically said, Rob, you're here because I need your help. And she was working for a multinational that ironically is quite well known for being a great place to work. Their scores are good. But what her boss had single-handedly been able to do was ruin this woman's life. She was feeling extremely anxious about quitting a little bit when the economy was down. It's a very good company to work at, so maybe don't let it go. But what to do? So I was drinking champagne with a woman in tears. And it really dawned on me that this actually matters. So when Hanlie gave me a call going, do you want to help us write a book? I was like, universe. Okay. And the third reason is because I love a challenge. And the challenge that they asked me to do was synthesize their experience, because they had lots of common stories. And my little circle as a coach was to take their stories and analyze them and then add the skill to help people. So it kind of, they had all the experience that I didn't, and I had some psychology and corporate stuff to add some skills. So that's the answer. Now, Viv, speaking of impossible humans, we've got 8 of them. Which of the 4 do you like?
I think it's just right, I must say. My favorite is Miss Sami. And by the way, some of them we just randomly decided Miss or Mr. It's got no relation to anyone that you know, even if you recognize it. So who is Sami? Sami is the competitive control freak.
Next.
My second one is Mr. Tumbleweed, and that is the indecisive warrior. Then Mr. Bright, the needy smarty pants. And almost like Scar, Mr. Illusion, the calculated political strategist. Hanlie, which one are your favorites?
So mine, Mr. Makeup. So Mr. Makeup is a seemingly nice manipulator. Then second is Miss Crosswire, a disorganized smoocher. So you may think this is a harmless character, but actually not. They can derail your career as well. Then Miss Wenwee, they're stuck in the past, broken records. So all solutions come from the past. You can't contribute anything in the present because it has to come from the past. And her past, not yours. And then Mr. Slow Lounge. He is the disengaged passenger. He actually turned out to be such a fun character. I think I maybe encountered more of them than what I initially thought. But I thought this is just so spot on. So he is a disengaged passenger. He is ready to leave. He can count the days and tell you, I've got 1 month or 1 year and 57 days, and then I'm out of here. And that wears you down. So, Rob, what about the last chapter, and who will we be looking at tonight?
Okay, so the speed date to our 8 Impossible Humans is going to happen with Miss Sami and Mr. Makeup. And there are 2 reasons. There's some interesting similarity between the 2, but when you add a little different spice, they finish up differently. When I was analyzing all their stories, there was something interesting about bosses who become impossible. There's either an anxiety that's driving some maladaptive behavior, unhealthy behaviors. There's an ego that hasn't been quite well rounded off. Or there's a fear, and when those things stay within you, you unfortunately start selecting behaviors that aren't the nicest. But which ones go in which? So these 2, Sami and Makeup, give us a good little sort of contrast. In terms of the last chapter, Hanlie, the last chapter in the book is What If I Am? A little bit of Sami and a little bit of Makeup. Because one of your friends said, oh, I feel quite anxious. This is me. And so as we were kind of working it out, we're going, we really need to help people become aware and then help that. And that's what the last chapter is about. Okay, cool. Right, so tell us about Sami.
Sami, let me first say where the name comes from. I'm sure you remember the song, Lionel Richie's song, Say You, Say Me. Say it together naturally. I'm not singing it tonight, I'm just saying. But now with Sami, it's not like that. With Sami, it's say me, say me, say me. So what are those kind of characteristics? I think we, in the book, count about 5 of them, and I'm just going to briefly refer to them, and Rob will write them down. The first one is, Sami will instill fear with you. How? She uses threats, she uses warnings, other aggressive behavior. I'm sure some of you can already conjure her up to instill that fear in you. You need to be fearful of her all the time. And then she doesn't shy away from telling you or any of her subordinates how useless you are. And she's not shy to humiliate you publicly either. So she instills fear. That's the first characteristic. The other one is, remember we called it the competitive control freak. This one wants to be in control all the time. Not some of the time, all of the time. So she will control all her subordinates, the time, your time, the resources that you will have access to, the tasks that you are working on, how you should complete them. In short, this is probably your most demanding boss that you'll ever come across, because she wants to be in control all the time. Then this one is the one that people find very uncomfortable, number 3. She provokes conflict. She lures you into conflict. So how does she do that? Typically, she can make comments that are seemingly quite innocuous or innocent looking. So say, for example, I know of the one that would say, so how is your health, Pierre? because she wants to hear something about you so that she can provoke you. Next time she uses that same health against you because maybe you're not as healthy as you should be, Pierre. I'm not just speaking on Pierre here.
No, I am not.
Then the fourth characteristic, she wants to be in the spotlight, her spotlight. So the moment when you come up with an idea, she'll take your idea and she'll put herself back into the spotlight because that spotlight is never to be shared with anyone. So what does she do? She hogs it. And then what is quite interesting, she finds herself incredibly impressive. And she'll tell you so. She'll tell you how fabulous she is and how wonderful she is because she's incredibly impressive. Then, the other one is number 5, she respects only a select few. So what she'll do, she'll select those that are powerful. And those are the ones that will get the respect. She'll attach herself to that powerful one, but only if it can empower her more. And I'm sure a couple of you are shaking your heads, you've probably seen this one. And then she will align herself to those that are powerful. And as long as she stays in control. And then finally, she gives rather than takes orders. The moment she gets an instruction, she will reallocate that task to someone else very, very quickly. The only time when what she will then do, she will delegate, she will reassign, she will quickly make sure that she does not take accountability for that instruction. She does not take any accountability for any delegation to her unless they are likely to improve her position. Remember, she's incredibly impressive to herself and you should know it. So Rob, show us what Sami looked like and can you tell us why is she like that?
Alright, so we've got a human who very astutely uses fear. The interesting thing about fear is the longest lasting emotion. You can feel rage, joy, excitement. They all unfortunately don't last as long as fear. Fear stays with you. Fear gets triggered So it's quite a clever selection of emotion. Combined with that, when you ask why, we get to what I call a psychological cocktail. Alright. Remember when I said some of the things that underline these are the insecurities. Unfortunately, this one here is at the base of it. So for a Miss Sami, the insecurity that she has is, I'm not enough. And it's a little voice inside her head that keeps saying it, you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not enough. And what humans do is that they then overcompensate for it. So let me give you an example. If this person was socializing with someone extremely wealthy, what do you think she would be prone to do? Yeah, shout out?
Show off?
Yes, exactly. Show off should be, I got, and it would either be telling stories of where she's been, anything that gives evidence that she's wealthy too. If she was working with someone noticeably intelligent, she would probably boast about stories of where she's graduated, what she's done, because the voice is always there, I'm not enough. The second cocktail that comes into this human's brain is a sense of competitiveness. Now, it's fine to be competitive. There are lots of people here who are competitive. In fact, even the way you're dressed, some of you, it's quite obvious you're competitive. Which is good. The interesting thing which you need to know about your competitiveness is your brain regularly makes comparisons. You can't be competitive unless you don't see a comparison. So, as a result now, when you take the insecurity and a brain that makes comparisons, it's like putting petrol on a fire. Because she finishes going, I'm losing to that guy's money or that woman's success. And as a result, she selects aggression. And it becomes a little bit of a cocktail when you add up the insecurity, losing all these comparisons, and with her aggression, sparks a conflict. Does that make sense? So, as a result of this little cocktail, Miss Sami, the competitive control freak, is often a bully. Because they're not aware that they're overcompensating for I'm not enough with their comparative brain and their aggressive stance. Okay, I hope that gives you a little bit of it. All right, now that we kind of know, we're going to go on to tell us about makeup.
Okay, so makeup refers to someone who is showing you someone different than what they are. So they wear a lot of makeup, they've got a facade. So when we look at the characteristics, they want to be prettier than what they are. So there's also an element that Rob will unpack there. But if we look at the characteristics, they make use of a honey trap. So they lure you closer. So they actually disarm you because they're so pleasant and warm and you feel so close to them very quickly. That's the first point. So you trust them very quickly and you actually feel special. So secondly, they are addicted to admiration. So this is they want to be loved. So love, they will tell you how popular they are. It's slightly different than Sami, but it also plays an important role. So they're very opportunistic. So they are very good at setting up situations for the long game. For example, if you're going through a restructure in the organization, they are at the front and center of it because there's opportunity in getting to their goals that they're working towards. Then they're enchanting and calculating and contrived. So, and we spoke a lot about this when we wrote the book. This is a boss that will actually get you to deprioritize your own goals for theirs. And we could compare notes and actually, identify where we actually left some of our own goals behind because this boss made us believe you got to work on this, not on that, because it actually supported the career objectives. Then lastly, they really expect a lot from you. This is a boss who will phone you at all hours of the day, morning, noon, night, weekends. If you're at the airport on your way for a holiday, true story, you will be working on a spreadsheet. You will nearly miss the plane. But they will, yes, they will be getting you to sacrifice for them because that really seems to make them feel good. So, Rob, why is makeup like this?
Okay, so whilst there's some similarity, oops, here it is. Here are the differences. At the base of this psychological cocktail is a fear of rejection. That's the part that motivates them to become popular. Because of course, popularity is the proof that I'm not rejected. And it makes the person feel a lot more comfortable as they gain and acquire more and more popularity. Which of course motivates the set of skills that they get good at. Charming, persuasive, and as they become more popular and a little bit selfish, they use those charm or persuasiveness because it proves they're not rejected, but then they start directing you towards their own thing. The next thing that's quite similar is whilst this person is competitive as a result of the comparisons, this person's really ambitious as a result of their ego. And the ambition is driven extremely towards self. Some of you will call this narcissistic, and it is. The psychology behind that is that when someone's ego, i.e. a sense of self, is a little bit larger than most, and they're all interested in themselves, we say, he's a narcissist. Well, you're right, but there's an important part. If they show no empathy, then you might be right. So if they have no regard for their impact on a human, you are indeed working with a narcissist. So a lot of people struggle. In fact, how many books are there about dating a narcissist or whatever? But here, you're working with one. The problem is that this person's interesting. Why did we call them makeup? Because there's a there's a tension. At the bottom, this fear of rejection actually finishes quite a positive way. They care about people, faintly, because they really, really have high levels of need for social acceptance. So they're always thinking about people. But then they're always so ego-driven, self-driven, so it's not really adding up. Are they nice or are they not nice? Well, that's why we call them seemingly nice. So as a result of that, like an elastic band, inside them is a tension, and that discomfort creates a facade that hides their fear of rejection. They're always happy, always so good, and they're not. Okay, and as a result of that, this facade is the perfect way to manipulate. And it's interesting, having written the book, I've just got a new client, and this executive, this ex goes under pressure. They're a listed company, they're hugely successful, they make tons of money. But right now, the exco are fragmented because Mr. Makeup has been discovered. What he said to the exco to become popular was something very different to what he said to his managers. And now the managers, who was meant to get promoted, there was this weird political manipulation. And the short story is that popularity's maybe suddenly evaporated. Okay, so that wraps up Mr. Makeup, the why, and then the why of Miss Sami. What are we doing next?
We're doing the strategies. So what we do in this book, and I'm actually going to read from the book just 2 strategies that I think would be very useful if we can unpack that, Rob. So when we deal with a specific character, the archetypal manager, we then move on to, after you've understood it, why, what Rob has just done, why overlap that, then get into the practical part of it. So I'm going to do strategy number 1, secret strategy number 1 for Sami, and I'll read it as follows. Managing the presence of fear. Establish your agency by using questions to demonstrate your strength. If you can take that one down.
Yeah.
And then I've also selected strategy number 3, Rob.
Okay.
Deal with conflict in the moment. Bite your tongue. Don't escalate the situation. Demonstrate your willingness to work with Miss Sami by asking succinct questions to clarify what precisely she wants. This should make her feel in control and restore her sense of calm. So if we can deal with those 2 strategies, and then we'll do the same with makeup.
Okay, so why do questions work well with the power-slinging, fear-driving human? The first thing is that if you ever attend any leadership course or whatever, someone's going to stand up and say, use questions, coach your employees. The reason being is, the first thing questions do is they make you think. Okay, if there's any hope to make this power-hungry freak a little bit more kind, you have to first make them think. So that's the first. The second reason is that questions carry power. The more you question, the more you move the power from them to you. So if you notice, someone who's attacking you will probably be accusing and questioning or pinning you down. And when you answer, notice how the power slide begins to go down the hill. The minute you answer, their power's being qualified. So they're showing the social setting by you answering, they hold it, and you respect it. Does it make sense? When you don't answer someone's question, and you give one back, what does it show? That you're ready to hold your ground. Does that make sense? So by selecting questions, or the reason why Vivienne we selected questions is because it makes their brain turn on and for some hope that kindness will come back. And the second is, it begins to move the power back to you. Okay, now I know you had an interesting scenario. Tell us about that and what happened.
Okay, so I had an impossible boss, Sami, that really gave me a hard time. And it would just deflate you. So this boss, I know I was working hard, my immune system was a bit off, and I fell ill for 3 days. I was booked off, I was man down. So the Monday morning when I was driving into the office for the EXCO meeting, I thought to myself, oh, you know what, I better brace myself. This is going to be a tough EXCO, because my Mr. Sami is definitely going to be giving me a hard time. And even though I braced myself, it was even worse than what I expected. So are we going to do a role play on it, Rob?
All right, so we're just going to show you one 30-second role play. I'm going to be the Sami. Okay, Hanlie, you be you.
Yes.
All right, so now I've got to be aggressive and demanding all the rest of it. All right, Hanlie, gosh, where have you been? You've been sick for 3 days?
Yes, I've been off ill, yes.
I can't believe for 3 days. I've never been sick for 3 days in 20 years.
I know, but I was booked off with swine flu. I was really ill.
All right. So, did you notice you didn't ask a single question? By the way, it's actually a real thing, where someone embarrassed Hanlie by actually kind of exposing her and sort of belittling, perhaps, by that. Now I'm going to try the questions and let's see how it goes. Okay.
Yeah, so I just want to add, this is at an EXCO meeting, it's in front of all of your peers, and this guy takes you out at the knees for being sick. So even though I braced myself, I wasn't prepared. I thought answering that I was ill would be enough, it wasn't. So, okay, so I happened to run into Rob on that very same day, and we were walking to the car. He said, what's going on? Because he was doing coaching sessions with some of our teams. And I said, no, I had such a bad meeting. And he was literally doing speed coaching on the way to the car, and that really empowered me. So this is, if I had this lesson before then, how I would have done it. And I started doing it that way, and it changed literally overnight.
And the one thing you should know is that Hanlie's extremely diligent, an analytical human who likes to answer with facts. So the minute Sami uses questions, she's sucked in because she's going to be factual. But she's being factual and powerless. Does that make sense? Okay, so, and I remember we were standing in the corner at the car park. Yeah, we just did it. And then it was so rewarding for me to hear, 24 hours later, Sami kind of got knocked off his bed. All right, so let's try some questions. Same thing. Right, welcome back everyone. Hanlie, I can't believe you've been away for 3 days. What happened?
Yes, I was off ill. I was booked off.
But 3 days?
And this is where I would have done it different. So the question to ask would have been, yes, for 3 days, but tell me, are you my manager that my sick leave, that my leave is being linked to on the system? Did you not see that I was off ill?
Yeah, I did. But I haven't been sick for 3 days in 20 years.
So, I am not sure why we are discussing my sick leave in front of the rest of my colleagues. It's personal detail. Can we please get back to the agenda? This is not even on the agenda. Let's move on.
Thank you. So you see, why are we discussing the sick leave that you've seen on your system in front of everyone? Does it make sense? So when you ask a question, it really does make me think, because now I don't have, because I rely on the person just giving an answer that I can then shoot another one off. Now I don't know what to say. So it is a very silly, simple thing that some of us often forget.
Rob, if I can just add, that has become a favorite technique in our household. It's
so sorry.
It's just so powerful. No, it's not me asking you, it's helping to think, and it's such a useful technique.
Thank you. All right, what next? Okay, makeup strategies, and then I think that's it, yeah. Okay. Which ones did you like, Vivienne?
So it's going to be
Hanlie.
me, Rob, for makeup. So Secret Strategy 2, which is feed his addiction to admiration while you work on your own plans. And then Secret Strategy 10, which is manage the elements of narcissism.
Okay. All right. So why feed a human's admiration? The reason being is because if you don't feed it, it will begin to drive it. So you're playing smart. Here is a person who wants to be acknowledged, constantly complimented, and I suppose, yeah, be better than anybody else, look better than anybody else. And if you feed it, it won't come back in that moment, which then should give you the freedom to work on your own. If you don't, they will pull you in to find something that they need to be acknowledged on, or, and it's interesting if we think about, yeah, one of the humans you and I worked with in that bank.
Don't mention the name.
Yes, so would always make us create slides. So I was writing speeches and strategies, and then she'd hand me something to make it look good, and then as she would step up, she'd be the people's person. Just everyone, she was there for the people, but then she would literally mow them down once she was off the stage. So this dichotomy of I'm here for you, but actually I'll still run you over 3 times is the interesting thing. So strategy here is actually go, wow, well done. Feed that addiction to admiration. Well done. That was incredible. Your speech was amazing. That feeds the ego. So the ego's now got its little bit of buyer plus. And as a result, the behavior is no longer driven by it, which then means she's not going to ask you to do or anything else. You go, okay, ciao, and maybe go home on time. So, yeah, it's kind of like plugging the endless hole for a day while you get the freedom and all the less educated people kind of become her slaves. Okay.
I think one of the most important things about the book is that if you don't know how to deal with these impossible bosses, it might have quite an adverse impact on your career and on your own development. And so in the book, and Hanlie will unpack that a bit more, we talk quite powerfully about these, what we will refer to as glass cages that you get, and how this impossible boss will put all these invisible ladders that you're not even aware of, that will stunt your growth. So Hanlie, if you could maybe talk a little bit about the career development and how it can stunt your growth.
Okay, thank you. And I think that was the purpose of the book as well. How do we assist others with a coach in the pocket for their careers not to get stuck? And the 2 things, like Vivienne say, thinking about the glass cages. And it's not even a glass ceiling, it's really a cage where they bring you in, they contain you, and it's really difficult for people to show their value and then get recognized in order to be promoted and for their career to grow. All 8 characters use the invisible ladders, the corporate ladders, differently. They'll hold it out, they'll take it away, and they'll get you to do things with empty promises. So that is something to look out for. Also, at the end of each chapter, we talk about why do you stay and why do you give extra. Now, those are important things to think about. If you're staying with an impossible boss, think about, if I'm staying, is there still something in it for me as well? Otherwise, you're just part of their machinery and you contribute towards their success. So you have to look at your CV for the younger ones to say, well, can I still add something to my CV if I stay? If you give extra, those weekends, those early mornings, those late nights, make sure that that goes towards something that grows your career as well, and not just for them. So I'm going to hand back to Vivienne and Rob to talk about how the book can be used.
And you should buy the book, quite importantly. We want you to buy this book, eh? Because you have an opportunity to also pay it forward now, not only help yourself. So 3 I want to mention. The first one is that at any given time, if you're honest with yourselves, and you might even, you can get it from this book, that it's applicable in any organization. You find these impossible bosses everywhere. So if you've ever experienced any of the 8 that we are mentioning in the book, then this is for you. This is for you to look at how you can help yourself by using this coach in the sense that you get in the pocket in the book. But then secondly, also not just about you. Maybe quietly some of you were thinking, ooh, that sounds a bit like me. Maybe I'm a Sami, or maybe I'm a bit of a makeup and I didn't realize it. So, and you might not realize the impact that you're having on your team, and maybe not just your team, but those that are your peers as well, and especially if you find yourself within the management team. So this is also for you. So that last chapter has very specific strategies for you as an impossible boss. And then thirdly, the team, because they sometimes don't know how to navigate. Remember, if this impossible boss can stand in the way of your career growth, and you're part of a team, how do you align yourself? Do you align yourself with this impossible boss? But then how are you? What's your impact then in relation to the rest of the organization? And this can be a school, it can be NGO, it can be a corporate, higher education. All 8 of them are in higher education. I can vouch for that because I've worked in corporate as well as higher education. So Rob, there's a couple more who should buy this book.
All right, well, from a corporate perspective, culture is an interesting beast. It's a bit like a cloud. You can feel the culture, but you want to try and change it. It's quite hard to push a cloud. It's just always there. But I do believe with a bit of awareness, leaders might be able to make a big change. So I think this is for the leaders that run companies, are the stewards of cultures, and the HR managers who need to create awareness, and then, most of all, retain talent. There's amazing talent leaving, and it's kind of sad when great people leave because one person doesn't quite know the cocktail that's a bit toxic. So my vision is to prevent toxic cultures, and maybe this is just the first step.
And then we probably have to acknowledge that there's a lot of pain. We mustn't underestimate the pain that people are experiencing when you're working in a toxic environment. I mean, sometimes you take that kind of decision that's maybe not the best decision for you, but you have to move on, like Hanlie explained. So it brings us to the part, which is a lovely part of thank yous. I firstly want to say thank you to my 3 lovely best children in the world, Claudia, Victoire, and Javier. You've lived with this book for a long time, and probably got tired of me talking about this book and sitting on a Sunday afternoon and writing it again and worrying about whether I've got the right word count. Yes, to my partner Jacques, thank you very much for the support, the advice always. You were there with a listening ear. And then many of you here tonight, we're actually not surrounded by strangers. We are surrounded by people that we care about in our lives, that have had profound impact in different ways on our lives and not only in our careers. And we're very thankful for all of you that are here tonight celebrating this moment with us. And without mentioning any name, you know who you are, why you are here, and we say thank you to you. And then of course to my 2 co-authors. If it wasn't for Hanlie Rob that project managed us, that book wouldn't have arrived.
So we see something.
So just a short continuation of thank you from me as well for Pierre, who's been living with this book, I think, the longest, together with my girls, Sabet, Machtel, and Hanlie as well. Thank you to all of you being here as well, huge appreciation. And then to Jonathan Ball and Exclusive Books. Linda, thank you so much. We really appreciate you setting up this evening for us. And then I'm going to hand over to Rob for the last thank you.
Cool. So thank you to all of you for coming.